Here we are, week 4. We're right in the middle of quite a few things going on. I made some notes here, so I want to be able to chat with you a little bit about that. We've got 2 cases down. We've got actually 3 more to go, so you're going to get just a little bit of a breather here. But this is a pretty important week as we try to grapple with sort of analysis strategies, analysis techniques. But it has to do with the idea of strategic formation. How is it that managers formulate or come up with the concepts or the priorities for their strategic objectives? So we talked about program strategies, so things that they can do to achieve public benefit. We're talking now about competitive analysis, so the forces that might operate in a task environment. And we're talking about stakeholder analysis, so thinking about people or groups or constituencies that have an influence on the organization. And then we're going to introduce the idea, or we're introducing the idea of corporate strategy, or what happens at sort of the highest level of the organization. A pretty important, quite a bit of stuff and fairly complex. So begin to, as best you can, grapple with some of these ideas. The discussion threads are outstanding in my mind. You guys are really demonstrating a good ability to synthesize the material. So read through those and try and follow some of that. And many people are summarizing it in a way that really gets to the salient points that are important for you to kind of carry forward. As we conclude this week, we will transition to talking about the methods or the techniques that organizations use to achieve the objectives that have been established kind of up to this point. So we move a bit away from the frameworks and the models and the analysis techniques to establish our strategic priorities, to the methods by which we might be able to achieve those. So we're going to talk about service delivery strategies, we're going to talk about advocacy strategies, we're going to talk about fundraising and resource development, we're going to talk about interorganizational relationships and the way that you can manage and utilize those to achieve your objectives. In reference to case responses, I'm reading them, and we'll have those back to you by the end of the week. I do want folks to remember that really are trying to be able to communicate a particular perspective. So while it's important to attend to the questions or feel like you need to respond to every aspect of the questions, I'm reluctant here to say too much to send you in the wrong direction, but if you find yourself exclusively wondering what it is that Will wants and that somehow I'm supposed to tell him exactly what it is that he's looking for in reference to these questions, you've kind of gotten yourself twisted up a little bit. And what you should try to be able to do is use the prompts to guide the framing of your discussion so as to communicate a particular perspective. You really just need to make some choices about what it is that I'm going to be able to talk about and what do I want to be able to communicate. Spending quite a bit of time and summarizing what happened in the case is not going to be moving forward your insights into what you want to try and communicate. So, case 3, Appalachian Mountain Club. It's a big case. There's lots of stuff going on there. It's going to be a challenge for you to be able to fully interpret everything that's going on. So question number 1 asks you to think about stakeholders. So this is what we're talking about this week, the stakeholder analysis technique. It asks you to think a little bit about stakeholders and think a little bit about some of their interests and their preferences. So as you're reading through the case, begin to make notes to yourself, well, who are some of the key stakeholders in this case? Don't spend all of your time talking about the executive director and the board, but thinking a little bit, in this instance, we're thinking about members, thinking about some of the customers. We can talk about the executive director, Andy Fallender, but we also want to be able to talk about the members and the way that they might engage with the organization and what their interests and what their preferences are. This is a complex case because it has to do with chapters, or it has to do with franchises, for another word, but they call them chapters, that are located up and down the Appalachian region on the East Coast, from New Hampshire on down to South Carolina, I believe, or North Carolina, and that these chapters run the whole region there, and they talk about trying to develop both program level strategies, providing services at the local level, as well as corporate level strategies at the upper level. And so question number 2 asks you to think a little bit about structure. What is it that the way that this organization is structured, with these sort of decentralized chapters with a more centralized office in Boston? And what is it that the different elements in the organization should do? Happy to chat with you about the case. Hope that helps a little bit, and enjoy the last 3 weeks of this course as we get through with this, because it's going to go fast.